Working Cows Podcast, episode 351. This episode is brought to you by Understanding Ag.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag studios, and this episode is brought to you by Understanding Ag. You've probably noticed that we frequently feature Understanding Ag's experts on our show. Well, there's a good reason for that. Understanding Ag is the world's premier regenerative and adaptive grazing consulting company, which was created for farmers and ranchers by farmers and ranchers. People who have been there, done that on their own regenerative farms. Understanding Ag's consultants aren't in the business to sell you costly inputs. Their sole mission is to help you understand, then grow your profits by applying regenerative principles and practices so you can grow healthier soil, food, farms, and futures, all while reducing input costs. Discover more at understandingag.com. You'll be glad you did. That's www.understandingag.com. Very excited to be joined today by Doug Voss, Kim Barmann, and Eric Fuchs. Going to be talking to them today about the Soil Health Academy and what the Soil Health Academy offers and the way that it's structured and how it's built and some of those things. So really excited to be joined by them. Doug, Kim, Eric, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Clay.
Yeah, very excited to have a conversation today about Soil Health Academy. So let's start by telling our audience what the Soil Health Academy is. What is this enterprise?
Well, I can sure take that on, Clay. As president of the Soil Health Academy, we're actually a nonprofit 501(c) organization that we focus our efforts on helping individuals understand nature's time-proven regenerating agriculture principles, and in order to do so, we can grow healthier soils, food, farmers, communities, and health. And that's through, mainly education, and we do fundraising to help individuals attend schools as scholarships.
Sure. Yeah. How did you end up getting involved with Soil Health Academy, Kim?
I actually, about 8 or 9 years ago, I've always been an advocate of regenerative ag since the 80s. I attended one of Alan Savory's early schools in 1984 in Albuquerque, and just blew me away. It totally changed the trajectory of my life. I was actually 24 years old, and my dad had asked me if I would like to manage a new part of the ranch that we had bought, a headquarters with another 30,000 acres, and had a dear friend by the name of Alice Moore, who has since passed, but was good friends with her, and she was touring me around her place, and she said, I want to show you something, and we drove over the hill to a small pasture that was kind of off the beaten path, and it was mind-blowing to me. She had it in cut out in, cell, more or less kind of the old cell grazing type for about 4 years, and the fence line contrast was just huge. And I said, Alice, what are you doing? And she said, you need to get to an Alan Savory school. And so our family has been involved with the whole movement. I really, have been passionate about it because I now see it not only relates to the health of soil, but also our small communities that have just been taking hits, as well as food chains and people's health.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, what is the purpose and mission of this organization? Why does it exist?
Well, I can take this one, Clay, and I'm going to read our mission statement first just to kind of lay that out. So the mission of the nonprofit Soil Health Academy is to teach and assist farmers and ranchers in applying time-tested ecological principles and biomimicry to regenerate our living and life-giving soil. And restoring the health of our soil's ecosystem, we will restore the health of our bodies, our farms, our communities, and our planet. And honestly, first we are educators, and that's the main purpose of the Soil Health Academy. And it's funny, we've been actually kicking around since Doug and I and Kim have started on the board here together of probably looking at re-looking at that mission statement, because we want to train everybody. We all know that farmers and ranchers are leading the way on where it starts, but the fact is we want to train consumers, we want to train educators, we want to train regulators and educate them on truly what soil health, regenerative agriculture is. So I think in the next few months, we're going to see our mission and our purpose is the same, but I think our mission and how we get it out to the world is going to get much, much bigger.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to put a link to that in the show notes page. And I think it's good to always continue to reevaluate those things and look at what are we focused on. But one of the words that stood out to me in that mission statement is biomimicry. Could you talk to me a little bit about what you're driving at there?
Yeah, I think we're looking at working with nature and not against nature. That's what I think about when I think of biomimicry. But it can be so much bigger than just with the soil. We want to. I think it wasn't that long ago, we had a pretty good system with our communities and with our agriculture and how we worked together as communities, together with diversity, that's one of the 6 principles. But I think biomimicry, while we think of it as nature and that, it can be so much bigger on communities coming together with our health, with everything else. It all starts with the soil. So when I think of biomimicry, Doug or Kim may want to add more, but that's what I think, working with nature instead of against. And we see it in so many different things, from the Corps of Engineers to people building bigger levees or trying to fight floods, nature-based solutions, something that we can actually work with nature instead of constantly trying to fight it and constantly, to be honest, losing.
Yeah, it's pretty well undefeated, right? I think that it over time seems to win most of those battles, and it takes a mindset shift. I think kind of similar to what Kim was talking about. It takes a mindset shift to look at those things and see it differently. Like, weeds are a symptom, and weeds are nature's cover crop. Where there's bare ground, nature's trying to cover that up. And so as we go out there and we create more bare ground, you're probably going to have more issues with those kinds of things, and we're going to have to do the work that we can to fight against them. Is that similar to what you're talking about?
It is, and I think we've lost those powers. One of the things we always talk about when we do an academy is go out and talk about observation. And I think we've lost the ability to truly observe what's in front of us. And that's not happened overnight. But once you start down this road, we always joke, you can't unsee things anymore. You can't drive across the country and not just slap your head and go, what are we doing? And I think a big part of it is trying to bring back that power of observation and say, okay, why did this work or why did it not work? But we have really gone down a road, I think, that's really kind of dangerous and unfortunate, both from economic and ecological standpoint, and not having the ability to observe what's actually in front of us and happening day to day.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really appreciated about the discussion that I had with Adam Grady, was the fact that we've outsourced that decision making. We've given that responsibility to somebody else, and he drives into our yard in a little white pickup truck, and he says, "This is what you need to buy. These are the bulls you need to buy, or this is the seed or the chemical or whatever that you need to buy to make this work." And we just take their word for it, rather than getting out on our own land and observing it ourselves and seeing what's happening and getting some of those things done. So I really appreciate that different way of looking at the world. Doug, what programs does Soil Health Academy offer?
So through programs and donations for scholarships, really what the Academy is offering is knowledge and understanding of proper soil function from regenerative practitioners, who are actively doing what they're teaching to recognize the degraded state of our resources and how to work to revitalize our resources through sound adaptive management. And this information is provided through an interactive classroom setting, typically with half the time divided into classroom instruction collectively with opportunity to interact with those participating, and then hands-on in the field. So people get to smell and see and feel what they're actually getting taught in the classroom experience to really help them internalize the information.
Yeah, and where are these academies held? Can you tell us about a typical host farm?
Yep, absolutely. So we try to strategically locate them around the country in different settings, from rangeland to dairy country and orchards and vineyards and vegetable production and the such. And so we select host farms that have made to some degree an intentional application of the principles and management to do some of this restoration as we talk about. And so it's important for people to hear and understand that each of these farms is on a journey, as we all are. And so not to come to these farms expecting to have everything demonstrated perfectly, because these are, dynamically changing systems, and we're all working collectively to improve those. But of course, nobody has a crystal ball that can determine what the weather will be like and various other aspects that are out of our control. And so it helps us really to understand and have a good constructive conversation about where we are at in these journeys and our successes and failures with our attempts to make it better.
So there are opportunities to attend these all around the country and to attend these in different types of operations, right? You mentioned a wide variety of operations, and I always think that it's valuable to go somewhere other than your backyard to attend these kinds of things. And also I think that there's probably some value in attending one maybe in a operation that's not exactly like yours. And when you start to apply the 6 principles of soil health, really the operations start to look a lot more similar. In my mind, there's livestock integration probably on some level happening in most of these scenarios, so that it's not like you go to a crop-based soil health academy and you are, it's totally foreign to you because there's no livestock there or anything like that. Would you say that is, that's kind of my assumption. Would you say that that's accurate, that as we start to look at things, with that new lens that Kim was talking about, that these operations become more similar and that there's something to be learned no matter if it's an operation that's exactly like yours or not?
I would agree with that 100%. One of the things that I encourage folks all the time is to look and discover as many different perspectives at looking at anything in particular as possible. And that'll help by exposing yourself to different environments, because the principles still apply irregardless of where you're at, but the context will certainly affect the way in which we look at that. And whether it's like you said, a cropping operation and how soil health and microbes affect that production cycle that may or may not end with the sale of a grain product at the end, but how that may then continue on with a livestock operation and how it's going to affect the production and the resilience of the livestock herd. And of course, it never stops there, right? It eventually gets to the consumer. And, in the process, what kind of improvements or degradation have we contributed to with our efforts? And so having a new way to look at something from a different angle can always provide benefits if we're looking.
Why should those interested attend in your mind? What makes this something that people should consider?
I think it's the experience as much as anything. We try to make these academies perfect from beginning to end, not only for the host farm we pick, the food you're fed, and the amount of people you get to interact with. And so it's so good laying the basic framework in. Should you stop your education there? By any means, no. I love the fact we talked about we could do academies at different places, but we talk about getting the principles in place, understanding that it doesn't matter what your context is, where it's at, how your rainfall is, how little, how big, But I think the biggest thing that we hear back from people that attend is the interaction with other people there. We try to give plenty of time to network, and some of the relationships, some of the I know it from an instructor standpoint. We meet lifelong friends that we continue to talk with from there on out. But it lays that basic framework to say we can do something different. We're trying to tear down those paradigms. We're trying to show that this is a new way, both economically and ecologically, that works. And so that relationships are good. And again, we're not just talking from the ag standpoint. We have a lot of attendees anymore that are coming from the health side or the consumer side. And I think that's where we know we're really, really making an impact when we pull those type of people to these academies, and to see the change, like Kim just mentioned her first training, how it just absolutely changed her life. You can't leave one of these academies as an instructor and not have your life change to see how these people end. So I think that's the main reason, just to tear us out of those things we've always thought to be true and change our lives for the better.
What percentage of each of these academies is made up of people who've been through one before? Do you have a sense of how many alumni might be at an academy at any given occasion?
I don't have good numbers, but I would guarantee there's at least 10 to 15% that are second-time attendees. And I'm going to throw this number out. There's probably 30% that, like you said, have no ag background, are just brand new to the ag field and trying to come in and starting from a different way. But Doug and Kim may have some numbers on that, but we get quite a few repeats on folks coming in. And as you know, 2 or 3 times, you always get something the second time that you didn't get the first time.
Doug and Kim, do you have a sense of what's driving that attendance from maybe non-ag people that are coming in?
Well, in my opinion, I think just with the explosion of your podcast, as well as many YouTubes, and then Kiss the Ground was huge, of how people started learning. So that's how a number of our academy attendees that were not related to, farming or ranching backgrounds have become interested, as well as, I would say, we've had people in the health industry want to come to learn more how soil health is vital for our future of healthy individuals.
Clay, I look at it in a world today that we have where interpretive reasoning is so much the focus. It's really refreshing for people to be exposed to something that logic and reason can be used to explain something we've been looking at all our lives, with natural processes that, along with comments that you made earlier with biomimicry, I like the terms emulate nature. We need to understand how these things are working in order how to work appropriately within those. And I think people find that refreshing, and they don't have to be on a tractor or on a horse or managing livestock. They're eaters, they drink water, they breathe air, and so it matters. And so I think we're having an increased awareness for folks from all those different perspectives, and that's why we're seeing the diversity in the classrooms that we are today.
Yeah. Well, and I think that so much of it is, we have become so disconnected from our food system, and really it is very recently that has happened. Pre-World War II, I think that many people, I think, as I understand that history, pre-World War II, the majority of the farm's income stream was in the form of protein walked off the farm by the end consumer. And so, we're talking 80 years down the road from that, and many people are totally disconnected from how their food ends up on the grocery store shelf. And things like DoorDash and other things have made that disconnection even greater. And so we're starting to see that pendulum swing back. And I think that's a really good thing, that pendulum is starting to swing back, and people are becoming more connected to where their food comes from, to the extent that they're willing to go to an agricultural continuing education course and say, I want to know how food is produced and why some food is different or better than other food. I think that's a really good thing.
And these classroom settings are safe environments to ask those questions, Clay. There's not going to be a criticism from somebody saying, well, one thing or the other. This is, constructive conversations where we can collectively work for the betterment.
Who are the instructors? Who are the ones that are actually there in the class doing the work of instructing these soil health academies?
Yeah, that's a great question, Clay. And we work very closely with Understanding Ag and all of their incredible team of consultants who have all, I call it boots on the ground experience for years and years in whether it be row cropping, rangeland recovery, as well as orchard work. And so that and I know that both Eric and Doug can expand on that, but it's vital that we have these folks that have been able and been practicing this for a number of years to go ahead and have the confidence to go ahead and teach the healthy soil principles.
And what kind of follow-up is there after the course? I mean, is there what kind of follow-up is there after the course as far as somebody comes to a soil health academy, goes home, and now they're going to look to implement? What kind of follow-up programs exist?
I was going to say, I can touch on that, Clay. So we have Facebook only groups, questions, and Soil Health Academy groups on social media. Also, we do a quarterly call for all past attendees, and those have been really, really good to have an open forum. They can either send questions in beforehand or talk during it, and those things have really been good to get everybody's different perspective. And to be honest, I think Doug can agree, if you've taught at an academy, there is a lot of text and emails and calls and things, because they go home so overwhelmed, really. I mean, in a good way. And it's like, hey, what do we need to do now? So, and some of them turns into consults, one-on-one consults later on. But we try to make sure we always do have that ability to have them to reach out, get a question answered. And so, between, like I said, Facebook chat and stuff like that, we're always open to answering a lot of follow-ups.
So what are some of the things that they're going to learn at a Soil Health Academy? What is kind of the curriculum?
So I like to say we kind of start out in a 30,000 foot view. And then by day 3, we're building paddocks, so getting the principles, Dallas Mount was the perfect one that told me to talk about principles and practices. And so really driving into 634 at the beginning, soil health, how this is, while your context may be different, the practices may be different, the principles are the same. And so then as and this, of course, is going to depend on the context of the academy itself, whether it's rangeland or crop ground. If we're in row crop type settings, a lot more talk about nutrients and how to handle nutrients. But when they leave, we want them to have the principles and the practices that they think they can go home and measure out a paddock, do some divisions, know how much is there, winter stockpiling. And then again, from a nutrient standpoint, how to use Haney test, how to be able to work with nutrients, how to do mixes. Try not to get into tremendous details because of the broad people that are there, but they're at least at the point they can go home and start implementing.
Clay, the best way to describe an academy is looking to satisfy a drink because you're thirsty and getting fed by a fire hose. And it's really true, because so many of the concepts that are going to be delivered in these opportunities are really paradigm shifting. And so even more essentially, what you will learn when you go to an academy is basic soil function. It amazes me yet how many people earn a living off of farming, ranching, etc., and really simply don't understand this because they've never had anybody able to explain it to them in the sense that is done at an academy. So how are these processes naturally set up to function, and what is our management doing to either help or hinder that? From that, it expands upon the effect of that management that has on the nutrient density of the foods that come from these systems and the effect that they have on ultimately human health after going through, an array of different species of livestock and plants and animals before it gets to us. But the big picture is really what I think is so significant to so many, because it starts so basic and it gets so complex as you get to the end.
Right. And I think that, again, back to that principles and practices distinction, that's, I've said it many times, that's why the 6 principles are called the 6 principles, because they are principles that guide people no matter where they're at, no matter what their context, no matter what kind of operation they are operating in. And, the 3 rules of adaptive stewardship, the 4 ecosystem processes, those are things that are the same everywhere. They don't change. They work everywhere they're tried, everywhere they're implemented, because they're guided by those 6 principles. And the 6 principles, I was recently at the Soil Health Academy, or the Soil Health Coalition, South Dakota Soil Health Coalition Soil Health Conference. And that was bearing out some of the things that you've been talking about, was that there was at least one lady there during a Q&A portion who just said, hey, I don't farm or ranch. I don't have livestock or crops of any kind, but I do eat food, and I'm here because I want to learn about that. And you guys are really inspiring me in the way that you've been talking and thinking about these things. And so we see that happening. But then also I asked Jay Fuhrer, I said, what can the farm, or what can the range learn from the farm? Or maybe I said, what can the farm learn from the range? And he said, basically, the range taught us the 6 principles of soil health. That's where the soil health principles came from, was from the range. And then I asked the same question to a range guy, and he said, well, that's true that the farm learned the 6 principles from the range, but the range is learning those principles because they've been distilled by the farmers and put into a consumable format. And now we can go back and look and find, oh, well, we've got bare ground here. We've got these broken ecosystem processes in our rangelands, and go and put those into practice. And so I think that it's bearing out some of these things that Soil Health Academy has been trying to teach people, and the curriculum is designed the way it is to give you that 30,000 foot view. Back to what Kim said at the beginning, because really you've got to change the way you see things. You've got to be able to. I think Eric was the one who said, drive across the countryside, slap your forehead, and say, "What are we doing?" Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. But first, you have to see it, and then it can facilitate that change at the ground level. So I think that's a really, really important, good place to start with the principles and that high level 30,000 foot view. Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Understanding Ag. We've been fortunate to feature some of the world's leading regenerative ag and adaptive grazing experts on our show. And many of those experts are farmer-rancher instructors for the nonprofit Soil Health Academy. This year, you'll have several opportunities to experience and profit from attending one of their remarkable on-farm schools and workshops. Whether you're interested in learning more about diversifying corn and soybean rotations to increase profitability, merging multi-species in marketing, grazing on high plains and in northern environments, regenerative farming and ranching, or enhancing profit and production in your beef or dairy operation, the Soil Health Academy has a school for you. One of the best investments you can make is in yourself, so visit www.soilhealthacademy.org to learn more and register. Financial assistance and scholarships are available. So what academies are scheduled for 2024? Do you have some of those already booked out and scheduled?
Yes, we do, Clay. There's 10 academies scheduled, but what I would love to emphasize is, if everybody that is interested, is to keep checking back to our website, because we hope to have more coming on towards the latter part of the year. And and they're in all parts of the country. We have them from the East Coast to the West Coast planned, and our ones in California are going to be 2 of the most current ones that are going to happen here in a month or so.
So they can find that at soilhealthacademy.org, and that will be linked in the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/351. Workingcows.net/351 will be the show notes page for today, and you can find links to soilhealthacademy.org and continue to check back there throughout the year and see what they've got scheduled. And so the 10 academies they run the gamut of the types of academies that you do, some on a dairy influence, some cropping, some livestock, Is that right?
That's correct.
Anything to add there as far as the academies that you have scheduled for 2024?
And there's so many different kinds of, we have some out in California that are centered around more vineyards and orchards, grazing animals within the orchards. We've got one at the Turner Ranch. This is going to be exclusively rangeland, and Kim hosts one. She's been one of our longest hosts for Academy there in New Mexico. We've got two actually in row crop, Iowa and Indiana, that are exclusively more of row crop, and some of those people are doing livestock in Iowa, believe it or not. So trying to integrate that. We've got one down in Mississippi that's really does a lot with the processing side of it, marketing side of it. So, and then of course Doug and the dairy guys, and then we've got, I believe, 2 or 3 in Canada, based off different contexts what they have up there. So we try to pick everything or every different environment the best we can, and also, as Kim and Doug know, we're getting calls every day. I took a call of somebody wanting to do one up in Idaho, so we're already planning out the academies for 2025 right now, because there is a lot of planning that goes into getting them. So definitely a lot of different environments for people to pick from.
Sure. Yeah, Eric, could you tell us a little bit more about the Battlefields to Fertile Fields program?
Absolutely. So it was a few years back, we decided to work with something, see if we can work more with vets on their transition out of the military. So there's a program that each DOD has called a Skills Bridge program, and they actually, while still on active duty, they can get paid, continue to get their benefits, but as they're transitioning out of the military, they can go get different training. So been a lot of people interested in going down this world of regenerative agriculture. So we try to provide, or part of the providing is the education, getting them an academy, getting some of our online programs, and then working with other regenerative farms around the country that will then sponsor or host some of these people. And depending on what branch of the service is, depends on how long they go, but maybe up to 6 months, or some of them have chosen to go a month at 2 or 3 different locations around the country. And so like I said, while they still get their pay from the DOD, we try to provide them their expenses to help with travel, education, and things like that. And we've had a tremendous interest in those programs. We're still getting more funding for them, getting it kicked off the ground, but it's really neat seeing folks. And a lot of these guys have had no background whatsoever, but see this, read something, most of them have heard a Gabe Brown video or watched Kiss the Ground, so they want to try it. So it's just a great program to be able to work with vets on their transition to the civilian life.
Yeah, very good. I see the Turner Ranches. One is in right in my backyard in Pierre, South Dakota, July 9th through the 11th, High Plains Grazing and Next Level Benefits. And it is bison. So that'll be an interesting one, opportunity. Are any of you all going to be at that school in particular?
We don't get lucky enough to go to that one. I'd love to be on the Turner Ranches, but I've been in that area a little bit. But honestly, you point out something good there. That's one thing we try to do is spread out the instructors at these academies for different places. So it allows the difference to be able to see different environments as well. But not lucky enough to go to that one.
And we've talked a little bit about the soilhealthacademy.org website, the opportunity to go there and find out more information. And I see a pretty extensive resources section there. Any other things you'd like to cover there as far as the Soil Health Academy website is concerned?
I can add a little bit there, Clay. We really are looking at where we're at as an organization right now with what we've been doing well and how to really expand upon that. So I would just suggest that folks, check back periodically to see what's potentially being expanded upon and changing. And I think we've got some good things planned for the future.
Yeah, and I can add to that, Clay, too. There's so many people that reach out to us that are really starting this journey. And so we want to provide as much stuff as we can from past webinars, from podcasts, everything else for them to, get as much. If we had our way, once they came to an academy, we want them to know a lot of the basics already. And it just makes things move forward from there. So, the entry would be to come to the website, see all these webinars, maybe do Regen 101, which is a very well put together online course. And then the next step would be to come to an academy and expound on it even more. So, like Doug said, stay tuned. I think things are going to be changing.
The other thing I'd like to add is that I really look at the academy as, and I wish folks would maybe look at it more so this way, but almost a prerequisite to some one-on-one work the consultants from Understanding Ag do with clients to establish that foundation and firmly get your footing with the concepts can save a lot of hassle and confusion, I would say. It's hard to overstate the significance and importance of having that foundation before you look at your individual context in your own farm and ranch.
Yeah, sure.
And Clay, I would love to add of just the like-mindedness of the folks that are at these schools, that it was a huge motivator for me back in the 80s and continue on to always seek out. And so I think that it's a great community that people can join. And then as Eric pointed out that, that we have these follow-up calls, as well as people can get on webinars that are offered by UA and just continue the journey of learning along with a tremendous amount of observation.
Yeah. Kim, talk to me a little bit about the loneliness of the journey that you were on in the 80s.
Well,
being the only one, probably the only one in your neighborhood implementing these kinds of things, or
yeah, actually there was about 6 of us, and we actually started the Northern Holistic Pioneer Group. And after about 3 years or 4 years, I think we dissolved it because it would just be us 6 ranchers. But I'll say my daughter's term of she says, "Mom, you can be exhausting." And I said, well, I'm with so many other amazing, exhausting people from the remit of connecting up with Ray and Gabe, and how that happened and how I became to be part of the board is I had been offering, soil health class, we've been doing 1-day schools for years. And I had a stint away from the ranch for about 8 years, and there had been nothing. And so I came back. My daughter was working in the extension, and we started doing every year doing a class on, soil health. And I had seen numerous. Alan Savory had sent me one of Ray's clips on the soil health, on soils. So I started calling Ray. And I bet I called him about 10 times in a week. And I, knew he was a native New Mexican. And I kept saying, I'm a native New Mexican, Ray, and have just heard wonderful things. Would love for you to come teach a class. And he'd been real busy teaching somewhere. And he called me back and he said, I've never met such a resilient woman trying to reach me. And we instantly bonded and talked for like an hour and 15 minutes. And then the next year, he was able to get Gabe to come. And of course, we just developed an instant bond and an amazing friendship. And I'm grateful for that. And when they were starting Soil Health Academy, they asked me, and I said I would be absolutely honored to help carry on this such an important mission.
We talked a little bit about the funding, but who can apply for scholarships? Who are these scholarships available for?
Anybody that's interested. We do get a lot of young ranchers and farmers, but we, as both Doug and Eric had pointed out, we have people that are just people wanting to learn about soil health since they may have health issues or either have seen YouTube or listened to a podcast. But I would say probably a good 65 to 70% of our scholarship applicants are individuals that are definitely wanting to increase their knowledge of soil health and are either beginning ranchers or have been longtime conventional ranchers that are wanting to educate themselves further and to change. Then we have educators that can come, as well as people have had people from the background of, that their great grandfather had a place and that they're now wanting to learn more about soil health in any way that they can to kind of swing the tide in a different direction than conventional.
Sure. Is there a place where you feel like Soil Health Academy is more well established or represented, or maybe an area of the country where they typically are hosted more than another?
We definitely have more challenges in some of the I states, that, and that's probably a place that, as we drive around and beat our heads, like we talked about, that is some places that we really need to have it. But that's where we're going to continue to go where we're needed. And but probably a lot of range stuff, a lot of grazing side, the dairy side, Doug can talk about more. But like I said, we've got two in one in Indiana and one in Iowa. And we get a lot of people come to those, but like I said, that's, I think, the place we probably should work even more. But as we mentioned before, I think we're going to go to where people want to hear too. And so, and that's what we have found as a board in a very short amount of time. It's people that may be beyond agriculture. And what's funny, if I can add a little bit, when we teach these academies that we're talking about doing with healthcare practitioners, or as I like to joke, mama bears, they're going to be taught with the very same format. They're going to be taught the principles of soil health. They're going to go out and dig. They're going to do infiltration tests. They may learn how to set up a paddock, but it's all going to be in the realm of also then of how does this work in regards to what you're doing, making good food choices or making regulations or teaching young kids or healthcare. And so, those are going to be held all over the country as well. So I had to get that little segue in there real quick, but they're going to be done much of the same way, but definitely different places probably could use more help, but sometimes harder nut to crack.
Yeah. Is there a specific concerted effort to reach out to those individuals, or are they just hearing about it through things like Kiss the Ground and saying, I want to go and get educated myself? Do you have a specific program targeting those individuals?
I would say communications are something we're always evaluating and reevaluating how effectively we can convey that message and provide the opportunities for folks to get together and learn more. But kind of like Eric said too, you still have to wanna. We can't force anybody to want to, and so it's really having conversations about where folks are at, and even addressing things appropriately with what's on the producers' minds currently, to see how the information that we offer can offer something with those concerns specifically, and then moving forward. It's really a wherever you're at, we can get together, we can have a constructive conversation. And sometimes it's as simple as planting seeds of all natures, and some take longer to germinate than others. And so we're willing to plant seeds wherever we can. And whenever the timing is right, we're willing to have those conversations.
It's the difference between I won't and I can't. Right. I won't is way harder to overcome than I can't.
Absolutely.
I can't is an issue of learning and knowledge and understanding. I won't is an issue of the will. And we know how hard it is to change those. So is there a specific nut that you are trying to crack as Soil Health Academy, like a challenge that you see that this has got our attention, we're trying to overcome this and work on fixing this issue?
I think I can address a little bit that, Clay. So we always talk about the three-legged stool. And if, the way we look at it, our purpose with Soil Health Academy, Understanding Ag, and Regenified is all the same. And it does change agriculture across the face of the planet to a more regenerative system. I'm one of those guys that doesn't think there's nothing that can't be solved by this movement, whether it be healthcare or ecological or water quality or what have you. So one really important thing that we want to do is tie those three-legged stools together. They come in, they get educated with Soil Health Academy. If they want, they can move over and get one-on-one with UA. And then as we create these products that are more nutrient dense and have a higher value, higher quality, then we market them through Regenified. We can say that's selfish from a standpoint of three different companies, but it's not. I've seen the purpose of everybody that works in this company and everybody that owns this company, and it is truly to change agriculture across the face of the planet. And I think that's when we kind of saw that as a board of we're the entrance point of it. And I think for us to get it right and educate it right, all the other comes into place, because people don't know what they don't know. And we see that so many times in the medical field. I worked in drinking water forever, and people did not really realize that there are solutions out there that can be implemented now with existing technology and economically make the world go better as well, bring communities back together. So I think we're the entrance point on Soil Health Academy, and what we do and how we formulate it's going to make all the rest of it successful as well.
That's the definition of a big, hairy, audacious goal. Change agriculture across the face of the planet. Obviously, it takes money to run these programs. Where does Soil Health Academy get its funding?
I'll tackle that first, Kim, if you want to go. So we do get money from many different donors. We've had some very good companies we've worked with that have been very nice and helping us. General Mills, Wells Fargo, there's other donors from individuals. But that is something that we want to continue to grow on. It does take money to get this going. We do like being able to provide a lot of scholarships for people. We expect them to have skin in the game as well. But, this is a solicit as well to try to, if people want, because a lot of people want to actually do hands-on to try to get this movement, but other people want to do it in the form of monetary. And so when we talk about getting out and training, it does cost to put these academies on. It costs to feed them like we do, but we want to make this available for as many people as we can. And with that, we definitely, we need help.
Yes. And we do. We have been very blessed by getting, some major donors, but we are always seeking out help and have been applying for different grants through opportunities that have come up for us. And I can just ditto what Eric said, that anybody that wants to move this cause forward, we will appreciatively take funds.
I would guess that the costs are not all covered by the tuition, because the tuition is reasonable to me. I know that it's not cheap. I wouldn't say that by any means, but it's reasonable and it's affordable. So there has to be some funding as far as private individuals and companies that are interested in these issues of soil health and nutrient dense food. That funding has to be defraying some of the cost of the tuition. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And Clay, I think you said it right too. I mean, when I go back and I look at what I've invested personally in different continuing educational opportunities that I've taken in, really for the information offered, I consider this an extreme bargain. To get the folks in the room that you do as instructors, as you have an opportunity to field your questions and kind of explore those different perspectives that you had coming in and how the information that you're learning at those academy classes relates to that. I really think that the dollar figure understates the significance and the opportunity that the academy offerings have and hold.
Yep. Jerry Hatfield was a speaker at the Soil Health Coalition Soil Health Conference, and he put it this way. He said, getting paid for carbon sequestration as far as through programs or whatever that might be, he said that's new running board money for your pickup. He said, but sequestering carbon in your land and getting better productivity out of your land through sequestered carbon, that's new pickup money.
Exactly. That's a great, love that.
I thought that was pretty good way of putting it to a room full of ranchers who maybe would be tempted to, and there's nothing wrong with taking the funds if there's a private company out there that wants to pay you to do it. But the real money, or the real generating of value, is in healthy soil being more productive and producing more nutrient dense food. So kind of is what we've been talking about here today. So I really appreciate that. Anything we missed or anything else that you'd like to make sure gets said here before I let you go?
Just that if anybody's out there been thinking about reaching out, thinking about taking one in, I would encourage them to pursue that itch and connect with us, because I think collectively we can do a lot of amazing things together.
And I would also say connect with us if you feel there's a way to help, and it does not have to be a monetary. We are always looking for new ideas. We want to see, that we're reaching the right people. I think we've got a bunch of great ideas, but we're 3 people, and we would love to hear from others on how, because like you said, we've got a pretty lofty goal, and we need all the help we can to meet that goal. And we're always looking for other ideas from people outside the ag community as well, inside and outside.
Is there a pinch point in the supply chain? Is it instructors? Is it host farms? Is it attendees? Or do you feel like you've got all of those things kind of covered? Or is there one that is the thing you need more of at this point?
We'd always like to be educating more, and it seems like, we'll worry that a school won't fill, and then in the last 2 weeks, you just get an awful lot. So most of our schools, we set it at about 50 to 60 individuals, whatever their where their background come from. But no, and that's why I think that we're seeing that we can offer more schools, because I think, and that is our only thing. What I would be that sometimes we worry that they won't fill, and it's amazing how most of them do come very close to the point that we are very pleased with the turnout. And Clay, I also want to thank you for all you've done and what you do with your amazing podcast and the realms that you cover for regenerative agriculture. I thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All glory to God. I've just been on a pretty wild ride over the last 6 years, and I always say this is proof of God's blessing on the podcast, because I've never been this successful at anything I've done in my life. So I appreciate that very much. So for now, though, I will just say thank you, guys. Thank you, Kim and Eric and Doug, for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clay.
Thanks, Clay.
Very good stuff there. Really appreciate Doug and Kim and Eric taking the time to join me for that conversation. Really good perspective, and I don't think the schedule will work for me to be in Pierre July 9th through the 11th, but man, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. So if you're interested in that, as always, you can find more information in the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/351 or www.soilhealthacademy.org. You can go there and check that out. Coming up next week on the Working Cows podcast, we will be talking with Ryan White of Snaplands LLC, and we're going to talk to him about how the company got started and about what the company does by way of rangeland monitoring systems and helping producers input and verify the land stewardship that they have been implementing, and making sure that they have an answer for the questions that people ask about whether or not their cattle are really doing good things for their land base. So look forward to that conversation with Ryan White coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.